Well, hey, everybody, this is Kim Andersack with the South Carolina Homeschooling Connection. I am your self-appointed busybody of homeschooling in South Carolina, and I collect resources and information that I think is wonderful that all homeschoolers should know about. And today we have brought with us Peggy, oh, I don't know how to say your last name. Allier. Allier with the BJU curriculum and the homeworks by precepts. Yes, that's what it's called. Homeworks is the
I'm a consultant.
Yeah, as a consultant that she offers advice and information about the materials with BJU. And today we're going to be talking about how you can use your curriculum. And even though her examples are going to come from BJU Press, you can modify this for whatever materials and curriculum you're using too. So I'm very excited to learn more about this. So thanks for coming and talking with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because it has some of my, let's see, get this going here. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is adapting curriculum for struggling. Why did it do that?
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming, but it's like it went on my screen, it went back to the non-presentation mode. Let me see if I can get it back up to, I have the push buttons are all where that, I'm trying to get that.
Oh, yeah.
All those push buttons are in the way. Why did it do that? I could leave it on this if you don't mind. I mean, but it
doesn't matter. We're good.
It doesn't look that great. Let me do this.
It's not as fancy, but I think it still works.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. I don't know what it did.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. I don't know what it did. Anyway. Okay, a little bit about me. We're just move us around. Okay. I homeschooled my 3 kids for elementary back in the 90s. And I just went to the next page. Okay, back in the 90s. And that was before there were many video courses or very little curriculum. You bought curriculum out of the back of vans and pickup trucks, and it felt like you were a black market or something. Anyway, but I did teach in a classroom. I substituted, I tutored, and I'm tutoring now as well. So I've been in education for quite a while. I wrote elementary textbooks at BJU Press for 18 years. And so I have experience seeing things and looking at the research. And during that time is when I worked on my master's in special ed. And so I've got that as well. And then now I'm experiencing homeschooling as my daughter homeschools 4 of her 5 children. So the redhead, I have 11 grandkids. And so the red-haired granddaughter, she graduated last year, and so she's her first year of community college. They live out in Illinois, so I don't get to see them that much, but I'm going to see some of them in a couple weeks. They're going to come here, the boys from that family. There's 1 girl and 4 boys in that family, so Libby's still homeschooling the 4 boys. But and then I've got the 3 at the top are up in Greenville, and then there's 3 more that are in Easley. So I've got 11 that keep me busy. My mom lives with me as well. And my husband keeps busy. He works for the Department of Public Health for the emergency preparedness for the state. So he's been quite busy whenever Helene came through. So now I'm a Homeworks by Precept consultant, and you can find me at the BJU Press booth at conventions or other homeschool events. A little bit about BJU Press. It provides a complete line of K through 12 textbooks and resources to meet your homeschool needs. And it provides self-paced video lessons as well. So you can either teach yourself or you can have the video lessons. And some people, it depends on the day, especially with those struggling learners. They might do videos one day, but then you might have to pull out the teacher's edition and teach them yourself sometimes. So however that goes, we have our online platform, and this can be used by anybody, whether or not they use our curriculum. It's a Homeschool Hub is a free online platform. The Hub has many features that can help with the organization, lesson planning, and record keeping. So you can do that kind of stuff on there. You'd have to put your own lesson plans in, but it'll track, bring it up each day for your kids and things like that.
Oh,
And it can be used by those doing parent-led, online, or DVD courses. So that's a new platform. It came out probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it was tested several years. And they're always putting in new features. They'll make suggestions. It's like, oh, I wish, because they add. I know one thing they added was like you can use a different color for each of your kids and things like that. They've added things, but it's a very good platform. I know people really like it, especially compared to what we used to have. So let's go ahead and get into the workshop here. One thing I have a biblical worldview, and so one of the first things I do is, and I suggest, is praying for and leaning on God's strength of God's word, and how your attitude and responses about your child's situation and your homeschool situation, they are shaping your child's worldview. If you don't think you can handle this, they're going to think, oh, I'm impossible to handle, or something like that. So your view of yourself and how your attitudes and responses to that situation are going to shape your kids' worldview and how they're going to handle that for themselves. They're going to think, oh, I'm hopeless if you think, which I think those in the workshop, I think you have a positive view of educating your kids, but sometimes you can get frustrated and things like that. So, and then planning, this one we'll sit on for a little while. You know what your child's strengths are, you know how they learn. And so you have an opportunity to individualize that instruction for each of your kids. You don't have, if you use a curriculum, you don't have to do it exactly every day, do a different lesson and things. You can skip lessons if they already know it. You can go back, you can reteach things. And so it's up to you to individualize it. Like, for example, we have our elementary English is grammar and writing in the same book. Every other chapter is writing. You learn grammar and then you have a writing chapter and grammar and writing. But you might use it just for the grammar, or some people just use it for the writing because it's very good writing instruction as far as it's modeled for them and they know each step. There's organizers involved helping them with planning and everything. And so some people just use it for the writing. So you can individualize it that way and use curriculum however you want. You want to teach to their strengths and encourage growth in weak areas. My one grandson that is homeschooled, he has some struggles. He's never been tested or anything, but for a while, he was like obsessed with maps and all kinds of things about maps. So my daughter tried to pull maps into her instruction with him in different ways. And even like he would draw maps, he knew how to read maps from very young. And so she was able to pull some of those things in to keep him engaged and interested. And she kind of adapted things as they went along and to keep him going. He's doing fine now. He's taller than me. But there were times where, and some days he knew things, some days he totally forgot what he learned the day before, things like that. But she worked with him and was patient with him. And so she tried to pull in things that he was interested in. Our curriculum has a printed scope and sequence, and if you have a curriculum, they usually have some type of scope and sequence, so you know what order things are taught, what grade level. And I usually suggest to homeschoolers, usually we talk about levels rather than grades, especially if you're going to have to adjust and go down, say, okay, we're doing level 1 before, because it doesn't say grade 1. I was looking to see if I don't even actually have a textbook here, but ours usually have a number on them for what the grade level is. But I just tell them, I said, with your kids, especially if you're going to have to adjust and go down, just say, we're going to do level 2 before we do level 3 and just do it that way. So there's ways to do that, but you want to see what's in the scope and sequence and figure out, where do you need to place them? What order what's going to be included in those subjects and things like that. And I know a lot of curriculums do have scope and sequences. And so that's something to look at. And when we prioritize, we want to then we have lesson plan overviews also for each subject, which is basically a chart at the beginning of either chapter or the book, and it shows you what is in each lesson. So you can decide, okay, I know I'm going to have to spend 2 or 3 days on that lesson, or they already know that I can maybe do it a little quicker and just go past it. And so there's, and a lot of curriculums, they'll tell you what to do on each day and things like that. So it depends on how you're doing it. So those are tools that you can use to help with planning. But this next one here is set goals of what to master and what to have as a lighter touch. So there's some things, they're going to struggle with. So this includes study skills and other softer skills as well as academic material. So those study skills are important. There's a lot of those are a life skill. Those are things of just knowing how to skim a page, look at the headings on a page. When you well, I don't know if they have magazines in doctor offices anymore, but you used to pick up a magazine. What would you do? Would you start on page 1 and start reading and read all the way through like you do a novel? No, you probably skim through it. You're looking at headings and pictures and captions and little blurbs and things like that. So you're looking at all those features before you decide, oh, I'm going to read this article. And sometimes you'll go back, like I always get frustrated on a magazine. On the cover, they'll have an interesting title or something, and then you can't find the page. You can't find the table of contents. But even knowing to use a table of contents, they might not know that, and things like indexes and things. So those study skills and those soft skills, just knowing, okay, I need to go back and reread something, or do I need to highlight something? And is this a time where I need an organizer might help me? So there's those skills that will help them. And like I said, those are going to be their lifelong skills, learning how to do those things. And so those are part of their curriculum as well. Your curriculum is not the textbooks. Your curriculum is the entire program of what they're learning. And so those skills and the other things that they're doing, it might be household chores, having a morning routine. Do they follow a routine? Establishing that. Do they know to make their bed and to brush their teeth? And, so depending on their age and what their abilities are, you're establishing those things, and that's all part of their learning and their curriculum. And you can make charts for them and all kinds of things to help them with that. But those study skills and those other things are very important. Most struggling learners need structure. I know in this day and age, a lot of homeschoolers unschool and they want to just homeschool on just as things come up, they'll change. But a lot of struggling learners, they need to have that structure. My younger daughter has auditory processing and attention deficit. And we didn't have her tested till 6th grade, which she was actually back in a classroom by then. But those early years, I couldn't do reading and the other language arts on the same day with her. I could do one. And so it was like an every other day thing. So she never really finished those books, those grades. I mean, we worked through what she knew and things like that. But when she was in the classroom, my son was 2 years ahead of her. He had a teacher, and that teacher tended to just on the turn of a dime, and she would just decide to do something different, or maybe have this schedule was in a different order. My daughter had that same teacher, and she floundered. She just could not do it because she needed to know, I'm doing this at this time during the day. Her mind, she needed to have that schedule. And I used to make checklists for her to follow. I would make a little list because she couldn't remember more than 2 things. I mean, if I told her a second thing, she forgot the first thing because that was part of the auditory processing. So I would make little checklists, and it was funny. After she had, I think her first or second one, she was in nursing school at that time. She's a paramedic, and then she went to nursing school, and so she was, I think, expecting her third one when she was in school. Anyway. But she said, Mom, I'm turning into you. I'm making checklists. I said, well, good. You learned that skill, because she was like having to keep up with things. And so that's some of those skills. But that you want to be able to plan for your year, have your field trips planned out, any big projects, and especially for like high schoolers, ones like that, if they have a project coming up, you need to back up and plan how many weeks before that, when they need to start picking their topic, working on their outline, doing their research. You need to plan those things in that way. While I was working on my master's, I worked in the university's Learning Resource Center. And that was one thing we did at the beginning of the year. They always had their syllabuses for all their classes, but we would work with them on a schedule and say, okay, you have a paper due here. Several weeks before that, they needed to have their outline in so somebody could check it. And so then they worked on their writing, and they needed to have time to have it proofread. And when we proofread, we didn't mark things on there. I could just write at the top of the page, you have 3 misspellings and 2 run-on sentences or something like that. I couldn't tell them exactly what it was at that level. But there were things you had to work on, those big projects, and then you plan when your extracurriculars are going to be. And then that daily schedule, try to keep it very similar each day, whether it, maybe Monday has a unique schedule and Tuesday or whatever, but try to not flip-flop it around very much. And then sometimes kids with special needs, you have doctor's appointments and things to work into that, and therapies or whatever. So those are things you want to have those on the schedule. And the sooner your kids can learn to read a calendar or something, printed calendar might be better. So that way it's a visual thing they can see. But I know a lot of times we have online calendars and things now, but those schedules, some of that stuff really helps keep them on task. So also then another part of planning is know your teacher's editions. I mean, if you're working to where you have access to teacher's editions, they are your friends. A lot of times, I know our teacher's editions at BJU Press, we have teaching in the front section, and it might answer some questions you might have about teaching the course. For example, I worked on science. This is an example of the front of the teacher's edition. It has, like, we had teaching, but we also had teaching a text lesson, as well as teaching the experiment lessons. They were taught a little bit differently. Scheduling. This is ideas on how to grade. We had rubrics for the experiments, so that you knew how to grade an experiment and things like that. So we provided things like that in there, so you knew, to give you some idea of how to teach the class. And then I added here to explore any online resources you might have. Our homeschool hub has resources in it that go along with our textbooks. So we have those. There's other additional resources on there. There's some things that we have additional language arts, because I know language arts are a big thing within education. And so we try to have more language arts type activities, even in the science and the history classes and math. So there's things like that might be available for your textbooks or your courses. So you want to know completely what's available that comes along with your curriculum. Then to interact with your kids, you don't like to just sit and, I don't know if you've taken like an online class or instruction, you just don't like to be lectured to. You want to be able to be active. So school is more than reading a lesson and doing a worksheet. A lot of parents, I know, when you're homeschooling, it's like, I just want to get it done. Well, you're missing that you are educating your child. Them just learning the material on the page, are they really learning, or are they just memorizing? And if they're not a good memorizer, then they're going to have a hard time. So how do you like to learn? Do you like, I'm a hands-on, more kinesthetic. Mm-hmm. I'm a poor reader. I learned to read with Dick and Jane books. So it was all sight words, so I never really learned phonics. So I'm a horrible speller. Mm-hmm. So when I worked at the press, I was always glad. I said, that's why we have editors, so I've learned when I generally have a sense of when I'm misspelling something, but I go and Google words all the time to see if I'm spelling them the right way, especially those with the I's and E's and some of those type of spelling patterns. But, how do you like to learn? Do you like to learn by hands-on? And try to incorporate those hands-on resources. Do the experiments, do the activities. If there's a hands-on activity, do those with your kids. Let them do them. And I know whenever we did science, they're like, oh, but there's all the materials to gather up for the science. And I'm like, I had one mom suggest to me, she does them like a scavenger hunt. She'll have whatever she needs for that activity or maybe for the chapter or whatever. She puts them on a list, staples them to paper lunch bags, and lets the kids go on a scavenger hunt around the house and find all the materials that they're going to need to do those activities for that chapter. So, you can have the kids help with some of that, especially as the kids get older, have them help you even with the scheduling and planning, but also finding the materials that you need to do those hands-on.
Yeah.
Our teachers' editions provide instruction for a variety of learning styles. So we do include hands-on activities and those types of things in those subjects in the teacher's editions. Reading is a foundation for many subjects. So you want to really work on those reading skills. And that includes ask questions to build comprehension and critical thinking. So you don't want to just ask questions about like who did what, who was the person that rode the bike. You might want to say, why do you think he chose to ride the bike down that street instead of another street? Or why do you think you want to ask some of those why and how questions to find out, or you might even have them if it's elementary and they're reading something about somebody being grumpy or whatever. You say, well, can you read those words and sound the way you think they sounded when they said it? And so you want them to get those understanding more of what the text is actually talking about. And you can do the same thing with history and science. There's ways of asking questions and thinking about and building connections between things. Here's an example of a teacher's edition for a science lesson when they're talking about the layers of the earth. So there's a visual there of you would have an apple, slice it in half horizontally, and you can see the core, and you can see the flesh of the apple, and you can see the skin, the peel. And so those mimic the core, mantle, and crust of the earth. And actually, I mean, just as a side note, the thickness of the peel on the apple is about the same thickness as the crust is on the earth, proportionally. We always think the crust is going to be huge, but it's not. It's about the same proportions that way. So that's just an example of that. You want to, we have that preparation for reading section. You want to give them a purpose for reading something. So ask them some questions. So like, what is weathering? What are 3 layers of the earth? Give them a reason to want to read those pages in the student book. And you want to ask questions. So, there's a question on that far right under that number 3. It says, teach for understanding. It says, why would it be difficult to know the exact composition of the Earth's core? And then so the text doesn't say that, but why do you think so? Because based, that the core cannot be observed, no equipment has been there yet. So depending on what they know and what their background knowledge is. So there's some questions like that you want to ask them and get them thinking, get them interested to learn about what's in the books, as well as maybe go beyond that. So when you present new material, it's best to do it with something concrete and hands-on. Kids really, you usually think of preschoolers and maybe first, second grade as needing concrete things, but really kids still need concrete up through 6th grade and even beyond that, as far as being able to learn new concepts. And so you can use manipulatives, activities, projects, and those can all help to teach for understanding. So you want to be able to try to do those types of things. Those can help. If you have a visual, a way of an example of showing how and why that's working that way.
Those real life learning things are really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And I
Instead
know.
of just doing all clerical work, workbooks
Yeah.
and checklists, and yes.
Yeah.
We all need that, really. I
Yeah.
still need that. I don't want to sit and do boring clerical work all day either. So
And my daughter, she struggled with, she couldn't skim to find, she didn't read for leisure until she was about 8th grade, and then she read Harry Potter books, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's like
Right in.
she did not read for pleasure. She didn't get the gist of jokes, things like that, because most humor is dual word meanings.
Yeah.
It's a play on words. So she didn't get some of that stuff. And like skimming was hard for her. I would have her help me in the kitchen, and I'd be cooking. I'd give her the recipe, or if it's instructions on the back of the box or whatever. I said, okay, I've already done this and this. Tell me what to do next. And she would start with step 1 and start. I said, no, skim down, find what I need to do next. And that was one way of just helping her with skimming. It's just a skill, but you can bring in life skills that way. Measuring is a big thing in the kitchen. I always found it easier to have kids help in the kitchen than to keep them out. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of skills that they learn that way, how to read a recipe, how to measure, how to, all of that goes together, and just the techniques and things like that. So they can learn by doing things and bring in those life skills as well. This is an example of an English grammar where they're working with past, present, and future tense verbs. Over here on the side, I don't know if you can see on the far right, it has ESL, and there's a note there. I'm not going to try to make it. I was going to try to make it zoom in bigger, but it might mess up. I don't want to mess that up.
Right.
But these are ESL notes that we had in our earlier editions, which now as they're revising, they're putting in differentiated instruction, which is a term used in schools, but it means that there's other ways. And a lot of times those notes give a more hands-on way of doing it. So this one is suggesting you can do it on a chart or something, but you have past tense, present tense, future tense. And you can even put the definitions there. And then you make a bunch of like sticky notes or cards that have words that have, ED, you have them in the different forms. And then your child needs to sort them out and put them under the correct category. And that's something you can do in a file folder and have that. And those are things like, I'm thinking this is for elementary, but I mean, other grades, you could do similar things. But like if you have a doctor's appointment or something, they can be sitting there with those file folders and play these little file folder games, and do their sorting out their past, present, future. And it's something where then you could check them, and you can make file folder games are wonderful for review and things like that. And I have one later I'll show you for spelling with that. We have this. This is how to learn to spell a word. And it's just a procedure. And there's a lot of these little strategies that you want to work with your kids with strategies. And so this is just one way of learning how to spell a word. Like, look at the word. Do you see any spelling patterns? And there's questions to ask under each of these. Say the word, think about the word, write the word as you say it again, check your spelling. And there's all these questions under it. And, ask yourself, how is each spelled? Like, cover the word and picture how it looks. And, you're thinking about the shape of the word and things like that. So that's a strategy for learning how to spell a word. This is spelling, and this is one I actually have at the end. I'll show you file folder. I have it done on a file folder, but our spelling lists in the elementary are, they're based on a generalization. This particular week has the hard K sound. It can be spelled with a C, a CH, or a CK. So the spelling list, they need to sort them out into those different things and different boxes. And that's where what's written in pink. They've taken the spelling list from the left and they've written them in there. You can do the same thing with a file folder. To have the file folder, have all the spelling words on the little sticky notes, and have your child sort them out into the different spelling patterns. And once they have them sorted out, then they can write it into the book. So they have that. And that's where you could have your spelling patterns. And if they start struggling through the year with, like in English or something, they're writing an essay or something, and they're misspelling words, maybe go back to that lesson and say, here, let's look at that. Well, let's see how it's spelled. What are the different ways you can spell a K? And then you're going to look at how the spelling patterns work together. But so there's ways of doing those with a word sort. Other ways of learning, another strategy is to make up songs that to familiar tunes. This is the planets, and it goes to the tune of Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush. You know, so 8 planets revolve around the sun, round the sun, round the sun. 8 planets revolve around the sun. Let's name them all in order. And you can go through and have that. Your kids can make up songs. My granddaughter, I just had the preschool grandkids here this last weekend, and the youngest one is 2.5, and she colors a rainbow. It's a piece of paper that it just has colors in stripes all the way across, all different colors. She sang the colors of, she named all the colors that she used on a thing, but she did it to the alphabet song. And so she just sat there singing, and it was a tune of the alphabet song, but she was singing about all the colors on her. You know, so she basically made up her own song about colors. But your kids can do the same thing. Even in high school, they can learn and different concepts and put them to a tune. This is one of those mnemonic devices where you have the first letter of each of the planets. It's like, my very educated mother just served us nachos. So that's, yeah, there's mnemonic devices. There's a lot of those out there for different things that you need to learn about. And so there's lots of these types of things you can find online. I'm just going to skip over that page. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Make a model of the layers of the earth. There's a little activity here where you have 3 colors of clay, and you actually make the red core, and then you put yellow around that, and then you put green or blue around that. And so you make a model of the layer of the earth with Play-Doh. And then you use like a piece of dental floss and slice it in half. And so then you have your model of the earth, and it lets them see that the earth is a 3D ball, because usually in textbooks, they're looking at something like this, and it looks flat. And that for them to comprehend that it's actually a sphere that's cut in half, that just helps. You have that apple image, but then also if you do it with Play-Doh and have the different layers in there, they can take that apart and look at it. And that gives them a picture, a better hands-on picture that that's more the way the earth actually is. And interacting, you might choose to have video courses. There are benefits to having video courses. You can save time and stay organized. You can customize to fit your child, depending on what you're doing. Our textbooks are available whenever you have a video class. You actually have access to the teacher's edition online, so it's there. But the textbooks also, for the student books, we have e-textbooks for all our reader type books. So like for reading, science, and history, and in the high school then for literature, those are all available as e-textbooks, and so they can be read depending on your device. You should be able to have it read aloud. You can enlarge the font. They can highlight. If you're connected to the internet, you can click on a word and it'll give you the definition from online and things like that. So e-textbooks are a benefit. And even if you're teaching it parent-led, you can always get an e-textbook as well for those courses. You're in control of what your kids are learning. And our courses, especially at the elementary, really all the way up, they have exciting personalities to keep the kids engaged. But yeah, we try, learning should be fun. It is work. Schooling is school. That's why you call it schoolwork. It is work, but it should not be boring. It should be interesting. And we want kids to be lifelong learners. You want to be always learning something new, taking a class or just reading about things.
Right.
And in this day and age, I mean, we have information overload almost, but being able to be interested in learning about something new. I have a 4-year-old grandson who can tell you everything about whale sharks. He knows whale sharks very well. And he also likes sloths. He's learning, that's a newer one. He's learning all about sloth. He likes things, but he's also in construction trucks. So he can name all the different construction trucks as we pass them. In Columbia here, that when they were down here this weekend, we went to the zoo and there were all those construction trucks because of the I-26 stuff going on. And he's like, oh, there's an excavator, and that's, and he could name what all the, but kids are interested in things, and you want to keep that interest all the way through high school and then into college. So if you use BJU Press video courses, but your student is still struggling, slow the pace. And you can do this with any of them. You can slow the pace of what you're doing. You can do that whether you're teaching on your own, or using a video class. Do it to what your student needs to do. And if they can do, and if you go back, like, so maybe they're in 7th grade, but you need to go back and do something in 6th grade. I know we have our elementary has a really strong writing program, and some people, if they start using our curriculum like at 7th grade, they're thinking, oh, I want to make it. So they'll go back and do our 6th grade reading, our English, and they'll get those writing classes in, and those projects, and learn the writing process. And but you can go as fast or as slow as you need to. If they need to go back and review, it's like, oh, I think I should maybe review 3rd grade math with them. Well, maybe just do the study guide at the end of the chapter. If they do okay on that study guide, then just go on to the next chapter. And if they start missing things, and just go back and just teach those lessons that you need to. So it's like, so some kids, they might need to go back, but you don't have to teach the entire course, just teach the parts that they really need. So, and like I said before, those teachers editions are helpful for you. And like we have the homeschool hub, we have additional games and videos that go along with the courses that you're teaching. And so there's some of that that's in there. We do also, let's see, I can mention it here. We have a website that's called After School Help. If you just Google afterschoolhelp.com, it's a BJU Press site, but it's for 4th through high school, and it's a help for anybody. And it covers math, English, and some of the high school sciences. And it's by topic. So like if you go into like 7th grade math, and that's and it'll just have, whatever you need about integers, or whatever your fractions or whatever, and it'll have a little short, maybe 2-minute teaching video and some practice exercises.
I think you gave me that link too, so it went out in the email for those that are getting the
and that
replay video, but I'll also link it in the post when I post on YouTube, so
and
they can do that
that's
link.
a good help. Anybody can use that. There's no login needed or anything, but
Cool.
that is something that anybody can use, and it's basically from 4th grade up is how it's listed in there. And those are just good, those little short video clips to be able to help. Then interacting, you want to directly teach skills and strategies. A lot of kids, like we know when we pick up a magazine to look at headings and titles, a lot of kids, they don't naturally know to do that. So you want to teach them how to read for information, how to find what's important. So they need to know to look at headings, look at captions, look at bold words, use a glossary. So those are skills that you need to teach and remind them about. And it might be something where you might need to even have like a little card that they keep on their table or desk that just reminds them of certain things that they need to be working on. And then allow your student to highlight. I mean, I know a lot of people like to resell their textbooks, but some kids, they need to be able to highlight. And I should have brought in a slide. I do a study skills for science and history, and highlighting, they can use different colors, especially like in history, for people, for dates, for events, things like that. And then color code it and have a key on an index card what each color means. So that way they always use that same color for dates. They always use that same color for people's names and for invention, whatever. You would have make a little key for what those colors mean, and then they can use that strategy throughout. You could use colored sticky notes as well. And so but those can fall off and things like that. Graphic organizers are wonderful. If you don't use them already, it's something that they can use. There's a lot of different types out there. I know with history, usually like a word web for science is good. In the middle, you would have maybe, and my mind's blank, mammals in the middle. And then you'd have coming off from that, they have fur, they have milk, what are the characteristics? They're warm-blooded, so you have those, and then maybe examples of those things off of there. So, and then they can also, you could do a Venn diagram with the two circles, and you can compare birds and mammals. What are they? They're warm-blooded, but, have feathers and lay the eggs. And so you can have the differences, compare and contrast. There's a lot of variety in the types of organizers, but they help kids, especially with the science and history subjects, that those can really come in helpful to help them be able to think through and see connections between subjects and between the different topics and the content. I was looking to see what I was doing on this page. I don't know. I think this is just an example of looking at the different type. This is his 6th grade history, but there's headings, there's bold terms, there's little boxes of information, there's a map, and to be able to read about the map. So there's a lot of information on that page. And if they learn how to look at things, a lot of times what we encourage the kids to do especially in science, and I think we did that a little bit in history as well. Before you even start the chapter, if it's a unit, then they can look at each chapter in the unit, but look through and look at the headings and say, okay, why do you think all those chapters were put into this unit? So maybe the unit, it would be, Middle Ages, and there might be different characteristics about that or something. But help them to see the connection. Why did the writers put those chapters in the same unit? And then once you look at a chapter, then look at the different headings in that chapter, the different divisions. It's like, what are we going to be learning about? Help them see that, so that helps them to make some visual connections that this stuff all works together. And so it's good to see some of that. There's reasons, there's a flow to it and things like that. You want to teach them how to take notes, so that's something you might need to work with, because note taking is important. Even if I know my daughter, my oldest, I think both of the girls do, her notes are full of doodles. She doodled the entire time, but she made good grades, but she had to be busy doing something. So a lot of kids have to be busy with movement and things like that while they're learning, but they can take notes, but their notes don't have to be words. They can draw pictures. They can draw like a comic to summarize, summarize what happened in the thing. Well, they could draw a picture if they need to of what event happened in history. Draw a picture of it. They need to know how to measure. The different ways of measuring what they're doing. If they're in high school and using calculators, they need to know how to do those. And you need to make sure that they know how to do them. They need to know how to do research. How do you do online research? How do you do book research? Things like that. There's some of those skills. Those are some of the skills you want them to be learning while they're just learning the content. Teach them how to manage their time. They need to, set goals, make a checklist if they need to, use a timer. Some kids have a hard time with sitting very long in a class. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. If you Google that and look it up, it's using a timer, and you gradually, you have them start with maybe like 5 minutes, and you're doing the teaching for 5 minutes. The timer goes off. They can stand up and stretch. and then have them sit back down, set the timer again, and work for another 5 minutes. Then you gradually get it longer. And then maybe every 15 minutes, they can stand up and maybe do some jumping jacks or something and then sit back down. And so it's teaching them, they need to have that movement, but it's also teaching them to gradually, they can make it till the next time when the timer goes off, to where they can work and try to concentrate. And so you're teaching them to gradually have a longer time of concentration. So that's a technique that you can use. It's used in business, but you can adapt it to schooling as well. And I think you can find resources online that have that. Oh, let's see. Take breaks and move big muscles. Kids need to, I do another workshop on movement. Most children need a break every 25 to 30 minutes. And the break needs to be movement, not looking at a device or something like that. And bigger muscles are better. Young children need a break about every 10 minutes. And the break, they can be taken before the child becomes frustrated or loses focus. So you need to try to take the break before that point.
Mhm.
That way they can get back and focus again. Include movement to improve learning. This is some of what the research, I brought some of this from that Get Up and Move workshop. Children's neural connections are more active than adults. The brain connections are stimulated by movement. Children who are physically active are more alert and ready to learn. Learning by doing is important for improving a child's ability to take in and use information. So you want to be able to do that.
Yep.
Here's
My
some.
kids had a trampoline. They'd go outside and jump on the trampoline.
Oh yeah, we
Then come
have.
in, take breaks to do
Yeah.
trampoline.
This is from the Society of Health and Physical Educators. This chart on the right with the pictures of the brain. This is, they took 20 students and they took the same test, but the left brain is after sitting quietly. There's not a lot of color in there. The cool colors are low to minimum brain activity. The warm colors are mid to high. After taking a 20-minute walk, that's what their brains look like. So they're active and ready to learn. Their brain is going to be ready to absorb more because it's their brain is active after doing that. Here's another chart. Crossing the midline type activities. Those are things you don't think about a lot, but moving one arm from one side to the other, crossing the midline. That's why it's important for little kids like to play with cars. When they're playing with a car, they're going like this back and forth, doing things where they're like even playing with Play-Doh and things like that, where their hands are going together. But it's best if their arms and their legs cross that midline.
Yep.
And it helps.
There's a whole program called NILD that they do board exercises that cross the midline.
And all of that really, those skills, being able to do that will help with their reading, writing, and coordination. And this chart shows, what's on the right side of the body, the left brain controls, and what the right brain controls, and then the different parts of the brain. And it just helps you see that you want them to be developing coordination between both sides of the brain and not just be doing on one side. You also want to provide a learning environment, provide structure and eliminate distractions. So they really should have a dedicated space. I know a lot of kids, they school on the couch, they might be laying on the floor, things like that. Kids with struggling learners probably they could school that way, but in general, they probably need more structure and try to eliminate distractions for them.
Yep. I had a friend that also said they always made their kids, like they actually had school uniforms, because once they put that on, like their mindset changed that this was my work moment rather than just always being in your pajamas. I mean, some people need that, some people don't. So those are the kind of things that you have to decide.
Yeah. When I homeschooled, my kids, we were in a mobile home at the time. I did have desks for them. So they each had their little desk. and we had a cabinet. We were in the living room, and I didn't want to homeschool at the kitchen table because I didn't want to have to clean it up every time we had to eat.
Yep.
So we had we had a cabinet where they each had their own shelf with their own things on it. And they had a little chart so they knew what their schedule was and things. But I also had them wear shoes. I mean, that made a big difference.
Interesting. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, they dressed completely, including shoes. So that made just a difference in their attitude, like you said, on being serious about schooling. My son was very squirrely, and he just was always bothering the girls and things. But the girls, they thought it up of using, I sew, so I had one of those cardboard cutting boards. We actually put it around his desk so he couldn't touch the girls. And so the girls always wanted to decorate it with pictures and things
Yep.
like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But having
but
that kind of that's part of that structure mindset, that you have a
yeah.
dedicated space, that this is what we're going to do, and this is where.
And then when the cupboard was closed, school was done. You know, school was open when the cupboard was open, when the cupboard was closed, and school was done. But so yeah, and you know your child, should they work alone? Does he need supervision? Does he need to work in a separate room from other children? You know, my daughter, when I first started homeschooling, she was still preschool. And then once she started into where I was actually teaching her, I pretty much had to take her to the bedroom. And I had her in the bedroom, and the other two were in the living room doing what they were working on, especially for reading. That was the thing. I had to take her out of the room so she didn't have any distractions and she could be over there. Another thing is have materials ready and on hand. The kids, you want them, that's part of the scheduling too. You want them to focus their brain cells on the schoolwork and not on what are they going to be doing next. Where do I find the book? Where do I find the folder? Do I need paper from over there? Do I need a ruler? Do I need a calculator? Have those things so they know where they are and they can just pull them out and they're ready for them. You know, so you might have to do some pre-planning and having things ready, but you want them to be able to focus their attention on the schoolwork and not on scheduling and planning stuff. And then they get all frazzled and upset because something was different that day or whatever. And some kids are like that. I substitute in a school for special needs, and some of the kids, if the schedule's different, they need to know why and all these other things. And so they get all in a tizzy. It's like, it's okay, you know, we're going to be, you know, but you want to be able to have that, have things ready, try to eliminate those distractions. And then this is really important. Praise their strategies, their methods, you know, what they're doing, the style of their work, you know, and their grit, their determination to do that work. Praising high marks can set them up for failure. They might randomly do a really good job, and then it might be 2 months before they do a good job again, and then they're frustrated, you know. But you want to, you know, are they using their strategies? Do they have a good work ethic? You know, how are they doing their work? You know, so those types of attitudes and things, that's what you want to be praising with their schooling rather than just their grades. Don't look at the grades. It's like, what are they doing? Are they accomplishing things? Were they able to successfully make their bed every morning that week? You know, things like that. Those are the important things that you're wanting them to learn. So, and then you yourself grow through personal development. You become the expert to best help your child. And only you can do that. And like, you know, schools may not be able to cover everything in their IEPs if they have IEPs. You know, you want to best help your child. So read books, explore websites, read blogs, attend conferences and webinars, things like this. You know, do what you can to really help focus on that. I've seen where keeps popping up in my feed on Facebook where there's going to be a family autism workshop or something. And I haven't signed up for it because it conflicts with something I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I just thought, you know, there's things like that available. EdWeb is a teacher's website, but it's edweb.com. And anybody can go into it, and there's tons of information. There's webinars and things in there. And that's a good resource, just educationally to look at and see what they have in the special needs areas. You know, you can look and see however that, I'm not sure how things are listed. It's been a while since I haven't been in there for about a year to look at it. But yeah. So enjoy your homeschool journey.
Mhm.
And then this is my information here.
Yep, I've got that
So,
also linked to, all
all
of that
right.
is also linked
Okay.
in the
So,
comments in the caption for the video, so.
okay.
Oh,
So I
well,
hope that was a little bit of helpful. You could glean some information
was
from that. So,
very helpful. And so I'm gonna stop the recording and hang out so we can chat some
okay.
more. And anybody that wants to reach out to Peggy with any questions, you can contact her with the information that's linked there, and or you can reach out to me at the South Carolina Homeschooling Connection. And we will see you all next time. So thanks for coming to this workshop. Okay, that's stopping the meeting. Hold on, I don't want to do that.